The 9mm is about to spank that 38 Special in this test. You know, I sometimes still get a lot of comments about how terrible 38 Special is for power, how great 9mm is. So I brought out some ammo, a good old-fashioned 38 Special +P versus 9mm +P test here. And these are with +P rounds of, you know, the heavier variants of those particular cartridges. So Underwood ammunition, our 9mm +P, is a 147 grain rated at 1125 feet per second. Our 38 Special +P is a 158 grain rated at 1160 feet per second. You know, those ratings might say that the 38 Special is actually a little more powerful, and in longer barrels they basically are. But we're working with short barrels today. I'm going to use my 3.2-inch barrel Taurus G2C versus my Taurus 605 with a 2-inch barrel, and we might actually even those numbers out a little bit more between the two of these. But still, there's a lot of misconception that the 38 Special is incredibly weak, and that's not necessarily the case. So we're going to see what we get in this basic test here. And the reason why I use a 3.2-inch barrel versus a 2-inch barrel revolver is because the actual overall size, weight, and distance from the bullet nose to the muzzle is basically identical with these two, and they both basically fit the same profile of carry size. So we're going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic test. We're just going to go into plain clear ballistic, see what the best potential is those cartridges are. After that, we're going to do more of our real world simulation where I have 4 layers of denim in the first 3-inch piece here that represents our pectoral muscle. After that, we'll have a 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard to represent ribs or sternum and to clear ballistics. Then after that, I am going to shoot at my steel target to see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. So let's get started with this test. And by the way, I forgot to mention, you know, the 9mm is a standard jacketed hollow point. It's a nozzler bullet, 147 grain. Our 38 Special +P is a lead semi-wad cutter hollow point bullet, 158 grain. This is basically like the FBI load, but loaded quite a bit hotter than that even. So first up, we're going to start with our 9mm rated at 1125 feet per second. I'm about 4 yards from that chronograph. Let's see what we get with our 9mm, how close we get to 1125 feet per second. 1076, 1090, 1069, 1071, 1096. So pretty good velocity for what it is, being a short barrel and a 147 grain bullet. Next up, we have our 38 Special +P. It is rated at 1160 feet per second. I believe that's through a 6-inch barrel, so we're not going to get that, but let's see what we get here. .976, 1019, 998, 1001. So I'm not really sure which one is more powerful here without actually doing the math. You know, the weights are enough off of a difference and the velocity is enough off of a difference. I think the 9mm is still just a hair more powerful, but you know, this is no slouch, and it's working with a different bullet design altogether. It's very old school, so that might perform completely differently versus a traditional jacketed hollow point bullet in our ballistics test. So let's hit our ballistics gel block, see how these compare. So I do want to make a mention that on paper they were not shooting to the left. I noticed right away that my sensors on the chronograph were having an issue picking it up straight over top of, you know, the sensors as far as how I thought it was lined up with that target. So I had to aim a little bit to the left, just because it's hard to really know exactly where those sensors are picking it up at. So they were shooting point of aim for me. So first up, we're going to have our 9mm go into our plain clear ballistics gel here. We're just doing plain clear ballistics. That's our best potential test, because it gives the best potential for a hollow point bolt to expand because we're not hitting any denim, and the best potential for penetration because we're not hitting a rib simulation. That can sometimes slow this down. So 9mm here, 147 grain. Let's see what this gives us. All right, let's hit that with our 38 Special +P. Both these are +P. Let's go take a look. All right, so our old school design and our new school design look like they perform similarly. Now you might think, well, there's more damage with that 9mm. Maybe there is. I think a lot of that, what happens is some of these bubbly marks with our 9mm here, I see that with a lot of jack of the hollow point, because copper is harder and it cuts a little better. It really drags that and causes that. As where our 38 Special, the path is just as big, but it's harder to see. There's like little marks along that whole path there, so it's a little bit harder to see the damage. And when we look at our first 3 inches here, both of them energy dumped quite well. Our 9mm, I'd say a little bit better. Our 38 Special energy dumped and then just slowed down a little bit quicker, I think, maybe. But what we got here with our 9mm is we got a total penetration of about 14 inches. And sometimes it looks like my finger is actually further up a different direction, like this way, because of camera parallax. But yeah, we're at 14 inches. With our 38 Special, we're not much more. We're at about 14.5 inches. So through our plain clear ballistics here, both are pretty comparable to what we're seeing here. Both of them had expansion, both of them went to similar depths, both of them did kind of similar bullet paths, tracks, and damage. You know, the 9mm apparently, from what it looks like there's more damage, and there could be more, but you know, that part of that is that the actual copper jacket. So let's put on our denim, put on our MDF. That'll be more of our real world simulation. See how they compare that way. All right, 4 layers of denim, 3 inches of clear ballistics, 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard, more of our real world simulation. Let's see how our 9mm does. All right, let's hit that with our 38 Special now. Let's go take a look. All right, so this is some very interesting results here. Set this back up here. So what we got going on here is quite a bit difference here. This down here, this track down here through our MDF is our 9mm. Here's our 38 Special. So what we can see is that denim significantly affected this particular 9mm's bullet's ability to expand. So even though I think it had a little more energy than the 38 Special, the 38 Special being a soft lead bullet, it expanded significantly better. Now what we got with our 9mm, that really shows that also in the first 3 inches here. On the bottom, here's our 9mm, up here's our 38. A lot more energy dump with our 38 Special. And what we got going on though is that 9mm went in and right around here, you know, it started to tumble. Caused a lot of tumbling damage, but then it got to a point where I would consider over penetration here. And again, parallax will make it look like I'm further away this way than the bullet, but lining directly up with my finger, that bullet path went to 27 inches and no expansion whatsoever. Our 38 Special, it looks identical to the plain gel shot, with the exception that we got a little less penetration from that bone stimulation, slowing it down. We have good energy dump, we have bullet expansion. We went to about 12 3/4 inches of penetration. So when we look at this particular test in this short barrel here, you know, I'm gonna call it the 9mm, or the 9mm didn't do very well. Our 38 Special significantly did better in this test. So did that 9mm spank that 38 Special? Well, I guess it did in penetration and over penetration and innocent bystander you might have hit there. But as far as working well within the FBI protocol of 12 to 18 inches of penetration, and then in my protocol of getting at least 12 inches through MDF and all of that, the 38 Special did very well. The 9mm did not. And interestingly enough, you know, both these guns weigh about 20 ounces. I was kind of surprised that the 38 Special had the recoil it did, because it wasn't any greater than that 9mm in my opinion. So that was very interesting to see that. So let's shoot our steel, see what kind of shootability I can get with these. And also, let me take a close-up look at these real quick. All right, so here's a close-up look at those bullets. Here's our 9mm+P and our 38 Special+P. These are through our plain gel shots. There's virtually no difference between the two of those, other than our 9mm is going to show a little bit more expansion due to that paddle sticking out. But as far as the lead expansion, I would say both are pretty much identical. They both look like they performed ideally. But when we put denim in there, our ideal expansion really changed. Our ideal penetration really changed with our 9mm, you know, because it didn't expand. We got over penetration. Most of the time I tell people that a non-expanding hollow point, it works a lot better than a full metal jacket. But in this case, the way that this particular nozzler bullet is designed, this really did perform almost exactly like a full metal jacket, and the way it penetrated really far and the way it tumbled. So very similar to a full metal jacket. Now when we look at our 38 Special+P through our denim and MDF, there's essentially no change there. And part of that is due just to the way that it expands. You know, it's not really taking on pressure in the same way. This little itty bitty hollow cavity, you know, has to get pressure in there, has to get stuff in there, material in there. And when it fills with denim, it has an issue. Our 38 being a lead bullet, it kind of like, I don't know, it can deform a little bit and also get pressure and material in there and expand. So if we have an issue with denim, I think what's going on is denim probably does clog that, but it kind of kicks it out from deforming, and this just continues to deform. Plus the hollow cavity is quite a bit bigger, so there's more chance of getting something in there to cause that to expand. So it's like night and day when we look at our 38 Special versus our 9mm through our more real world simulation. I would much rather have that 38 Special do that. And, you know, did very, very well, though, overall, our 38 Special. Our 9mm, you know, it would do fine on a naked attacker, but I'm not going to trust this right here, because it was just a little bit of denim there in a bone simulation. Most 9mm cartridges do perform fine through that, but this heavier bullet here just didn't really seem to do that well. So that's a close-up look at those bullets. All right, 12 yards from the target. I'm going to try to do my best to really judge this ammo on how it shoots. I have a bad habit sometimes of coming out here and doing these type of 12-yard tests. By the way, I'm 12 yards from the target. Where I pull up and just barely get a front sight picture, or don't look at the sights at all and just pop them off. Sometimes I'll miss a round or two, and it's like, well, that's really more on me than what it is the ammunition. So I'm going to do my best here to get a sight picture of front and back sights, pop off some rounds, and see what the difference is between the 9mm and the 38 Special. So here's our 9mm. Let's see how this stuff shoots for me. All right, 12 yards from the target. I would say it shoots pretty good. So 38 Special. Let's see what this does for me. All right, so yeah, the recoil was getting away from me. I saw my sight go high right before I pulled that trigger again. So even though previously I said the recoil is about the same, and it kind of is, you know, the amount of force in my hand is about the same. The 38 Special has a lot more muzzle jump, despite the fact that the energy recoil in my hand doesn't feel greater. It definitely has some more muzzle jump. So it's a little bit harder to control that under more rapid fire conditions than the 9mm. So it is kind of a trade-off here. You know, the 9mm is easier to shoot, and you can place them on target probably a little easier, but the terminal ballistics kind of sucks. The 38 Special terminal ballistics is awesome, but it's a little harder to control. So let me back it up a little bit, and I'll keep shooting at that target, see what kind of accuracy I can get from a little more distance. All right, 75 yards from the target. I know it's not practical between you guys and me. That part of the reason why I do this is because of lighting conditions with the trees coming in through summer. If I put the camera where I normally put it at 25 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards, it makes me blacked out where you can't even see me, and you know, editing that light back onto me is virtually impossible. Coming this direction where I normally set it at 75 yards, it picks up the light just fine. So, you know what? Since I shot them at 12 yards and I saw how they shot, it doesn't really make a difference whether it's 25, 40, 100 or 100 or 75 at this point. So I'm just going to do some slow fire the best I can. See what I can do with these. See if I can make any hits. So 3.2 inch barrel Taurus G2C, 75 yards, 147 grain. Which 147s tend to shoot good for me. So see if I make any hits. I have no idea where that went. Interesting. I can't even see it hit the dirt, so I'm not sure where it's going. Oh, I don't know what it's hitting. Huh. I don't know where it was hitting. That's interesting. I have absolutely no idea where it was hitting. It wasn't really moving the leaves and the dirt down there at all. That's interesting. 38 Special. Alright, so that moves the leaves a lot more. They tend to be impacting just a little bit higher than where I'm aiming. Keep going. Alright, so after I reloaded, I noticed they were hitting significantly high left for me. The first couple shots I hit, but after that I didn't do very well at all. And sometimes I do well from this distance, sometimes I don't. Most of the time it's me, it's all me. The reason why I'm missing, some of the time it's the ammo, some of the time, like I think today, it's a little bit of a combination of both, where it does seem like at distance both of them really opened up those groups, and I couldn't keep it very consistent with where these are hitting, because with this particular revolver I'm usually pretty good at even at this distance. So we'll just take this portion here and we'll forget about it. You know, it's not practical anyway, but I like to do it for a challenge. For some reason it makes some people so angry when I do it. It's like, well, it's my video, what's the difference? I like to plink at some distance, chill. But what we're seeing here, though, is a big difference between our heavy variants of 9mm+P versus 38 Special+P. You know, what we saw in the thermal ballistics is the complete opposite of what a lot of people will tell you. They'll just repeat the same nonsense that 9mm as powerful as 357 Magnum, 9mm this, 9mm that. I've heard a lot through the years that 38 Special is less powerful than 380 ACP and less effective. I've heard that 38 Special is 100 foot-pounds energy. I've heard so many things about 38 Special that's never been true in my testing, but yet that information keeps getting repeated. And I think it's a really long, deep-seated misconception going way back to law enforcement and the Widowmaker round, which is basically a 158 grain lead round nose at 755 feet per second. That was weak, that was slow, that was not very effective. But when rounds like Jacket Hollow Point +P, +P+, Treasury load, FBI load, all these really effective 38 Special rounds came out, people would just continue to repeat that nonsense. And then I've had a lot of debates with people, and I'll show that you know, the 38 Special is more effective, and they'll be like, well, it's no match for the 9mm because that's 15 rounds, and you're out of ammo by 5 rounds, as if somehow we're opponents and a person's shooting a 9mm bullet at me, and I have to take my 38 Special and knock that bullet out of midair with my round. And then after the 5 times I've stopped their 9mm bullets in midair, well, I'm done for, and they got a better advantage. Truth be told, even in modern times, the statistical average for shots needed in a self-defense situation is still 3. It's 1 to 5 is what's the most common. In a typical civilian self-defense scenario, it's 1 to 5. It's rarely beyond 5. So let's just say somebody else is a bad guy and they had a 9mm and they start shooting my direction. Their bullets have nothing to do with my bullets going down range. You know, if I cannot be hit in some way and I can deliver accurate hits with a revolver, I'm just as well armed as anybody else. So that's my opinion on it. That's also a lot of the facts on the situation here, what we're talking about with statistical averages, 9mm versus 38. So 9mm does not spank 38 Special. 38 Special is pretty darn good. It's actually better than a lot of stuff I've tested. So that's what you get today. 38 Special plus P 158 grain versus 9mm plus P 147 grain Underwood ammo. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.